everyone, it's Marcy and I want to welcome you back to the Rock and Sea Homestead. Last week we kicked off our new series, Chickens 101, How to Get Started, with a little information about the pros and cons of all the different types of chickens that you can potentially get started with on your farm, homestead, or even in your backyard. This week we're going to take a deeper dive into those three different main methods we talked about, and we're going to tell you a little bit more about the exact kind of equipment and resources that you need before you bring those eggs or those chickens back to your place. Okay, so let's take a deeper dive into fertilized eggs. If you're planning to start with eggs that are already fertilized, there are several things that you'll need to make sure you acquire before you get the eggs. Out at the Rock and Sea Homestead, we have hatched 2 different batches of baby chicks, but we've had the advantage of having a mother chick doing all, or mother hen doing all of the work, keeping the babies warm or keeping the eggs warm till they hatched, and then tucking the babies up under her wings and keeping them warm, teaching them how to get, hunt and peck for food and all of the kinds of things that you'd expect a mom to do. But if you're starting from scratch, from the very, very beginning, then you don't have the advantage of having a mother hen to do that work, and you're going to need some specialized equipment. I've got my sister here, Sarah, and she's hatched baby chicks in an incubator or been involved in that with her kindergarten classes for probably over 15 years now. So again, like I said up front, we're not experts, but we have done this a few times. So we're just going to share some of the things that we've learned through experience. So let's show you the kind of equipment that you're going to need if you want to hatch fertilized eggs. Okay, so here are some of the things that you might need to get started once you've acquired your fertilized eggs. So Sarah, why don't you tell us kind of what we're looking at here?
Well, we have the styrofoam incubator. There's many different kinds. This is the kind we've always used in our classrooms. We have an automatic egg turner, so we don't have to turn them manually. And then a wire bottom for the incubator for when the eggs are off the egg turner and ready to be hatched.
Okay, so you get your fertilized eggs from your county extension office, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that's really neat. They have a cool chicken embryo program, which I kind of alluded to in our part 1 video. So that's how they get their eggs, and when they come to you, what do you do to get started?
So we talk to the lady at the extension office, and in a couple of days before she brings the eggs, we go ahead and get our incubator plugged in and get it heated to the proper temperature. The eggs stay at about 100 degrees the entire incubation period. Once the eggs come, we put the egg turner into the incubator, plug everything in, and we're off to the races. The eggs get turned on a regular basis by the egg turner. If you don't have an egg turner, you have to turn them manually 2 to 3 times a day, and they recommend putting an X on one side and an O on the other side so you know that you're switching everybody properly so that you can turn them. But the egg turner is a huge help so that you don't have to keep up with that, and not on the weekends and that kind of stuff.
Right. Once you've gotten the fertilized eggs, how long from the point that they go in the incubator till they hatch?
It is almost exactly 21 days. The science behind that's pretty amazing because we mark the first day and mark out 21 days, and they hatch almost to the day. So 3 days before hatching, we take the eggs off of the automatic turner, we put our wire bottom in, and we usually cover the wire bottom with a paper towel so that they, it's a little easier on the chicks when they hatch, and put all the eggs onto the wire frame. And we don't do a lot of turning at that point because they're getting ready to hatch, and usually a day maybe before, or a few hours before the eggs are hatching, we can hear peeping coming from inside the eggs, so we know for sure we've got some action at that point.
And then you get some very excited kindergartners, I would assume.
Very excited. There's always a crowd peeking in through the tiny holes in the top of the incubator.
Yeah, so that was something we mentioned as one of the pros for getting fertilized eggs, is if you have children, there's probably really nothing more exciting to them than watching something kind of miraculous happening right there in front of their eyes, and getting to see the entire process from start to finish, and then also getting to kind of handle them and getting the chicks used to being handled, which is another great advantage with starting eggs from the very, very beginning on your own.
For sure. It's a well-loved thing, and I have students come back years after and talk about that being one of the things they remember most from kindergarten or pre-K is hatching baby chicks and getting to hold them. Yeah. So it's a little bit of work, but honestly the incubator does a whole lot of it at the very beginning. The real work begins, I think, once they've hatched, and you have to start finding transitional housing for them, making sure that they stay warm, making sure they have the right kind of food and water, and those are all things that we're going to cover next in the video. What to do once you've got those baby chicks hatched and ready to go.
All right, so you have your baby chicks. Either you may have got them at a store, you may have bought them online, you may have bought them from a hatchery, you may have hatched them already. But now since you have them, now what do you need to do? The first thing that's before, and I would highly stress this, before you go buy chicks, if you haven't already done any of those things, is to have a plan, have your materials ready. And these are some of the materials that you may need depending on what scenario you're in. The main thing that you need to have them in or have for them is a secure location. As you've seen in our last video, we saw, we shown some pictures of, you can get like a little brooder set where you can kind of have it all together, all in one kit. And if you don't want to do that, you can kind of piecemeal it, kind of like we've done. When we first got our first set of chicks from our sister-in-law, we got them. She had them in a little cardboard box they had in their classroom. And once we got them, we upgraded them to a little tub like this. We put some bed shavings in there. We had a little bit of a feeder like that. You have a little waterer. And then, have some sort of a lamp. If it's, depending on the time of year, you may not need one. This time of year when it's cold, if you're going to keep them inside, you may just need just a lamp, which is a regular light bulb. Make sure these are very secured and they're not going to catch anything on fire. Very important. One of the things that these baby chicks, they're going to grow quickly. So you may start them in this container, but very shortly they're going to outgrow it. And they're going to get too much, especially depending on how many you have. If you're getting 20 chickens, you may need to start off with one of these containers already, or some other type of container where you get bigger. We started with a small amount, so you have to kind of fit that, right? So one of the things we did once we graduated from this container, we went to one a little bit bigger, and I made a little lid for it and had a little flap up so we can get in and out of it. It's just some of those things where you can kind of figure out what works best for you. Eventually, we did end up just going with this kind of Atwood's kind of water trough tub with a little lid that we can put on it. If you need to strap it down, we can strap it down, because eventually they will flutter up and they can get out. So you do have to have some sort of a lid. Now, not only does their room have to grow, but their food has to change. So when you first get the food, when you first get the babies, you're going to want to get like a baby chick crumble. I prefer the medicated. Also, recommend doing the chick grit, because for those that don't know, chickens don't have stomachs like ours, so they actually have like a gizzard. I'm sure you guys all have heard of chicken gizzards, but it's a muscle within their digestive system that uses rocks or grit to kind of break down that food, so then it passes through. And that's why some kind of grit or rocks or something like that is very important for their health. As I was saying, as these chickens grow older and they get bigger, of course, how much food they eat, how much water they drink, all gets larger amounts as well per day. So, different styles of water. This is one that kind of hangs, and they can just put their beaks on that and water comes out. Here in a little bit, when we talk about getting full-grown hens, we're going to show you some of our waters and feeders that we use those. Eventually you're going to need them, and that's just the next step up. So,
all right, so let's take a deeper dive into full-grown hens. If you choose to start your own backyard chickens that way, you'll want to find a source. There's lots of good sources online that you can look for. We found the ones that we brought home on Craigslist, so that's another good resource. But before you go and get those hens, or before you order those hens, you need to make sure you consider where you're going to house them before you bring them home. So on our property, we actually already had a chicken coop already on the property. It wasn't in very good condition, but all we had to do was clean it up
and fix a few places, and we were ready to go. When we increased the number of chickens that we had, we actually used a storage shed. This was actually a storage shed over here, and we built the outside area so that they'd have an outdoor run, and we built up the inside so that it would be able to function as a chicken coop. Of course, there are lots and lots of chicken coops that you can buy online. You can also sometimes find them listed on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist, places like that. Lots of time places that sell sheds and storage outbuildings will sell a chicken coop. So you can check those sources. You can also just buy a small shed, and kind of like we had here, and build out an exterior part for it. You need to take a few things into consideration, like the chickens need a space to go in and out of, and also there'll need to be some ventilation that might not be already in a storage shed. But that's a very good alternative if you don't want to try to build one yourself, or if you don't want to go buy a specialized chicken coop. You could just do it with a shed.
So not only do you have to worry about just having a structure, there are certain things that you're going to need to have inside of those structures for those full-grown hens when you bring them home. A couple things, of course, some sort of feeder. Like this is when it's hanging. It could just be on the ground or on a block. Some sort of a waterer. We've shown several different types that we've used. Again, this could lay on the ground or on a block, or it's hanging here. A roost, some sort of roost. This is a natural thing for chicken. You want them off the ground, especially at night. These are just 2x4s. You can use, like 2-inch or 1-inch wood, like a tree. Just something to keep them off the ground so they feel more secure. That's how they are in nature when they go into trees at night. They will, by nature, roost. Another thing that you're going to have is some sort of a nesting box. More than likely, one of the reasons why you're getting chickens is you want eggs. So, all different sorts of different nesting boxes you can get. These are ones that are already here in this one. We just kind of put some secure stuff in here to keep eggs from rolling off. But just fill them with some either, pine shavings, straw, hay, and they'll get in there and nest and get you some good eggs. So another thing to think about is ventilation. So depending on the style of building you have, the coop that you have, of course, we have some ventilation on either side, kind of the east and west part of the building. And then we even have a bigger one when it gets a little bit warmer. We can open that up to get a bigger breeze. And then we can even open up the window in here to get more breeze. The thing that you want is you want ventilation, but you don't want a lot of draft, especially in the wintertime. In the summertime, not so much, but dry and draft-free is really what you need for the chickens to make them very healthy, plus ventilation. Now, one of the other things you need is a place where they can get in and out, and also, depending on your area, securely. For us, this just goes into a locked container or a locked run for them, so they can just go in and out anytime they want. There are some chicken coops where you can lock it down, so if you have predator situations, you can just lock them down at night and they're just in here, and then you can let them out in the morning time or whenever you feel like doing that.
So that's a wrap on part 2 of Chickens 101, How to Get Started. We hope that you found that helpful, and please keep in mind that whether you start with fertilized eggs or full-grown hens, eventually if you're starting at fertilized eggs, you're going to need all that information because those fertilized eggs are going to go through all of the different phases that we just talked about. So keep those things in mind. Make sure that you're prepared before you bring your chickens back to your homestead or to your farm or even to your backyard, as many cities allow you to keep hens in your backyard, even within city limits. Double check your city's guidelines, and of course, if you live in an HOA, you'll want to make sure you take those things into consideration as well. I hope you'll join us next week as we take you one step further into the journey of getting started with chickens in Chickens 101, How to Get Started.
Hey folks, thanks for coming back and watching our video. We really do appreciate it. If you haven't already, give us a big thumbs up, leave some comments, and of course, if you haven't subscribed, there's a button right down there somewhere. Click on that, kick that notification bell so you get notified every time we upload a new video. And thanks again, and we'll catch you on the next video.